Rooted. Hey, morning. We are on week 8, day 2. How does God view money? Matthew 6:19-21 is our memory verse. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor vermin destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Day 2, owner versus manager. Psalm 24:1. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live it. We are God's. Stuff, vehicles, books, gadgets, coffee. It's all God's. Yet God has put us here to manage everything that He has allowed us to to come in contact with and possess. We don't come in contact with it as a owner. We come in contact with it as a manager of what we have. Right? So God entrusts us with money and stuff. We are managers of His money and His stuff. All right, that was the first thing that man was entrusted in the garden, was to take care of, to manage what God had created, the garden, and to tend to it. Matthew 25:19-21 is the story of the owner who went away and entrusted his servants with his stuff. And the verse in there, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come, share your Father's happiness. And so let's, that parable is the parable of the good manager. Matthew 25. Parable of the talents is what most people understand it as, because that talent there is used instead of money or stuff. And so this is a story of an owner who goes away on a journey, calls all his servants, and trusts his property to them. One he gave 5 talents of money, another 2 talents, and another 1 talent. So they all got different amounts. Then he went away on his journey. The man who received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gave 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Probably not a good idea. After a long time, the master and the servants returned and settled the accounts with them. The man who received 5 brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrust me 5, and I have gained 5 more. The master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 talents also came. Master said, you've entrusted me with 2 talents. I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who received 1 talent came. Master said, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid. I lived in fear, and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I do not sow and gather where I do not scatter seed? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would at least have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has been given more, he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. Throw the worthless servant outside into darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's a description of hell. So it's interesting that when God entrusts us, we are to grow, right? Just like a garden, we are to use that land to grow kingdom on this earth, right? God gives us stuff around us. He gives us life and breath. He gives us energy, and we're to use that to produce what he wants to produce in this world with this shalom, peace, kingdom. And that goes from the spiritual realm all the way into the physical, natural realm. So thing about how we live a lot of times is we go backwards. Like the servant that kicked out into hell, he actually stayed even, right? He didn't go backwards, where we tend to, as it relates to money, we go backwards. We put ourselves in debt and owe other people. And so that's the parable of the talents. It teaches us a lot about how God expects us to be managers, and ways that we can. So a manager. When you think of a manager, you think of somebody that's doing something, right? You think of somebody that's not just living, right? Dave Ramsey says, if you managed money the way you managed, if someone paid you to manage money the way you manage your money, you would be fired, right? Because you're not, because managing money takes time. It takes effort. It takes doing something and thinking about it and making decisions, not just living. And so how do we manage our money? Well, there's a thing called a budget, and scary word to some of us. A budget to some of us means slavery, loss of freedom, loss of joy, loss of happiness, loss of control. But in the reverse, a budget really is just a structure. We all need boundaries in life. And a budget is framing out proper boundaries for us to put and manage different parts of our lives. And so this rooted gives us a general principle for where those boundaries should be as it comes to money and what money God gives us to manage. And so the first thing before we go into that is God expects us to pay taxes, right? So they threw that in there kind of in the middle. God expects, so pay your taxes, right? It's in the Bible. Jesus paid his taxes. It's important, right? God's put authorities over us. Those authorities collect taxes, so we pay them. All right? So, 3 things about a budget: saving, giving, and spending. In that order of priority, in that order of doing it too. So 10-10-80 is the general rule. 10% you're going to give back to God as a tithe, as a first fruits. We'll get into that. 10% you're going to spend. Not spend. You're going to save. And then 80% you're going to spend. So let's get right into giving. 10%. We give that back to God. And that can be through giving to a church, giving to missions, giving to however God calls on your heart to give, you give it back, right? And it's the first fruits. You give it off the top. You give it first. Proverbs 3, 9 through 10. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops. Next, save 10%. This is about wisdom, okay? We set aside 10%. We should set aside 10% to prepare for the future, or prepare for someone else's future. Prepare for that catastrophe that's going to happen, if not to us, to somebody else, to our neighbor, right? Proverbs 6, 6 through 8 talks about the ant. And we are to, the lazy person, the sluggard, is to consider the ant who stores away, harvests, stores away for the winter months. Spend 80%. We're to spend 80%. This is on our daily needs: food, clothing, transportation, entertainment, things like that. When we live for ourselves, when we spend more than we bring in, we become slaves to someone else. And God wants us to live as free people, slaves only to Him, His kingdom purposes. So debt is not a good thing to have in our lives. Living within a budget is work. God wants to manage His stuff. Management takes work. It takes discipline. It takes weekly, sometimes daily commitment to sitting down, telling your money where to go and what to do with it, and drawing proper boundaries, buckets, baskets to put that money in, so that when you draw it out, the money's there. When you need it, the money's there. God asks you to give it, the money's there. Okay? So be good managers today.